All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us once again for TedX. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Shelby joined us in July on the analytics team. She is a graduate of Illinois Tech with a degree in computer engineering and a passion for exploring new thoughts, ideas, and cultures. She has hopped across 4 different continents in the past 10 years. And as a result has been really focused on the idea of keeping things light and mobile and simple and surrounding yourself with the things that are most important and most valuable and things and people that are most valuable to her. She joins us from Prezi, and she's going to be using that software in her presentation today, talking about the prioritization of happiness. So I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby, and today I'll be talking about not the pursuit, but the prioritization of happiness. Everybody wants to be happy. Jefferson wanted the whole country to be happy. Will Smith thought he found happiness, and Kid Cudi, in his best song ever, thought it was unattainable. So today I'd like to talk about why, instead of pursuing happiness, we should instead focus on prioritizing it. And prioritizing it every single day, even at work. Our work makes up our days, which makes up our months and years, and that makes up our life. So it's important to prioritize it every day, all the time, so that we end up with a happy life. So the first thing that we have to think about is self-awareness. Everything about happiness begins with knowing what we want, and knowing how we intend to get it, and knowing what are the things that bring us joy, and how we can get them. So the first question that we should ask ourselves is, what is it in life that we are hoping to maximize? There are a few things that make us feel at ease, and some of those things bring us joy, and let's try to unravel how we actually find out what we want. So for some ideas, we traveled to Bhutan. For those who don't know, Bhutan is a small country in Southeast Asia. It is one of the first countries that decided that as a country, instead of just focusing on their GDP, they actually wanted to focus on gross national happiness. So they actually came up with a few metrics that they asked the country, their citizens, to sort of give them feedback on how they're doing on those metrics. And they try to rank them, they weight them, and they do this on a yearly basis to see if the country is actually improving in its happiness performance. So some of those are obviously health. People think that just physical and even emotional health is extremely important. And do you have time? Do you have time to take a vacation? Do you have time to sleep? Do you have time to pursue things that you value? And do you have opportunities to grow? Is education accessible to you? Is your government fair and just, which gives you the platform to access things that you like? And obviously, do you have resources? Are you able to get the things that you like? A nice house, car, money, whatever that is. And lastly, of course, do you have a healthy social circle? Do you have friends and family who you value and who value you in return? So we may think that a lot of these things are independent pieces. We all obviously value them differently, but what I'd like to point out is that sometimes a lot of these things interact with each other. We typically feel that having friends just means going out and making friends, but for that, one of the things that you need is time. And you need to also be in a good emotional place to accept social contact that's valuable. So we do think about these things, but the important thing is to find your own personal fit. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but if we spend time thinking about what it is specifically that we value, it's something that gets ingrained in our mind. Now, heads up, I am going to show you a graph. I am an analyst, so it's sort of in my contract, so beware. So this is something that I did as a thought experiment. We all obviously have a lot of things that give us happiness. So I'd like to suggest that we all look into our past happy moments and try to break them down what made you happy? How much of an effort was required for you for you to do that thing? And how much of a boost did it give you? The idea is to start small. Think of things that can be done on a daily basis. Think of things that you can sort of incorporate into your work and take it from there. So in this example, I basically just ranked some of the things that I felt were simple enough to achieve at work. Heads up, we're going to be starting a petition for a nap room in the new office. But the idea is to basically just find things that maximize your happiness boost for the amount of effort that's required. This makes us cognizant of what we value, and it stays in your mind as something that we choose to prioritize. Next, I'd like to talk about acknowledgement. The most important thing that we can do for a happy person is to show gratitude. It starts with just showing gratitude to the universe, because there are a lot of things that are put in our path which bring us joy, which make us feel nice, and we should acknowledge that. We should acknowledge that good things are happening to us, and we should acknowledge the people and the situations in our life that bring us joy. Every day we have events that happen. Sometimes it's a coworker remembering your favorite kind of cookie, and sometimes it's just that the BART wasn't late. When we start acknowledging these sources of joy, it puts the focus on something good. It puts the focus on something positive, and those positive things make us a little more aware of things that are causing us happiness, and it actually causes our subconscious to actually seek out those sources of happiness. So I would suggest that we spend a few minutes every day just showing gratitude and thanking the universe for its generosity. And that part is purely internal, but the external part is obviously that whoever it is in your life who brings you any source of joy or makes your life easier, it's important for us to sort of positively reinforce that behavior or those situations. So maybe your friend would like to know that you value the conversations you have with them for lunch. And maybe your local government would like to know that the bus stop that they made really eases up your life, and that will encourage them to do more things for you, which will help in your happiness. So the last thing that I'd like to talk about is just acceptance. So accept the truth. We all know that there are some things that are true for us, and even if it seems strange that other people don't understand it, or maybe people will find it weird that we bring attention to it, if it is the truth for you, there is nothing wrong in speaking up. That's actually one of the best things I like about the Silicon Valley culture. I think it was rated somewhere that this is one of the most common values that a lot of companies list as part of their cultural values, the culture of standing up. I think it's really nice when people are able to just sort of speak up, and regardless of their seniority or title, because it is important for us to express what is something that means something to us, and then others can actually help you prioritize it. As an example, I've always loved a short commute. There was this one year when I had a 3-hour commute, and it was actually with a job that I absolutely loved, but the commute sort of undid the rest of the great things that I had, and I left the job after a year because of the long commute. And I realized that as something that was a truth for me, that for me personally, my quality of life took a huge hit if I ended up spending a lot of time commuting. So after that, every single recruiter that I spoke to, one of the first questions I'd ask is, where is the office located? And I essentially just took the whole concept of working for a company that would require me to commute for a long time. I just took that out of the equation. It was one less thing that I had to sort of spend time making a decision on, trying to weigh the pros and cons, because for me, that con sort of undid a lot of the other pros that there could possibly be with a job. So My commute is now 11 minutes walking, which is awesome. And it's hard at times, sometimes to sort of, stick to these kind of things because there's so much noise out there. People are like, oh, but you can, offset it with something else. You can accept more pay. But if for you the extra pay doesn't undo the long time that you spend doing something that you don't like, it's probably not worth it. So, oops. And one final thing that I'd like to say is that we should all learn to just accept happiness. Happiness is not a zero-sum game. If I am happy today, it doesn't mean that there's going to be a future moment in my life where I'm going to be unhappy. It does not balance out in our life. And it doesn't balance out in our community either. Just because I'm happy doesn't mean I'm happy at your cost or at somebody else's cost. We all have the capacity to be happy, and we all have the capacity to be happy for a long time. There are lots of people who have spent their whole lives being mostly happy. And there are lots of communities that are largely happy. That didn't just happen by luck. It didn't just happen that the balance shifted on their side or in their time. It is something that I feel they chose. They prioritized every time they had a chance to do something pleasurable. They took that chance, and they didn't feel guilty about being happy. They didn't feel guilty about, not doing what everybody else was doing. So not everything is in our control, but the few things that they are, I think we should focus on them to create a lighter self. And on the last note, I just sort of push this as a reminder, but if there are choices that we make, especially things that it may seem like something that's worth half an hour every day, but those hours add up. They add up in our whole life. And if that choice is something that we're not wholly comfortable with, we should really spend time thinking about the other options. Everything is negotiable. If that option doesn't work out, you can find something else. So if you ever find that there are red flags in a decision that you're about to take, which you feel is going to, based on your past experience, you feel that it's going to impact your happiness index, really spend some time thinking about why you would want to still go through with that choice, and just sign up for people that you like, sign up for people and places that make you feel at home, and for situations that you like, because the joy is yours if you make the choice. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Shelby?
Yes.
So how successful has Bhutan been? What's their success metric?
Bhutan's success metric, they have done this every year, and you can actually check out, it's one of the things in my references. They actually publish these results every year, and I believe they've had largely the index has sort of stalled because of government issues, but people have, companies also sort of rework their cultures based on the fact that people should have enough time to do things that they want, and they should have opportunities to grow. So they have seen an increase year over year, but it goes up and down. It is not the happiest country in the world, though. Denmark is. Yes.
How do you balance short-term and long-term happiness?
Very good question. I think every day short-term happiness has to be sort of, you still need to focus on it, because if you're not happy short-term, I feel it's harder to sort of just be happy a year later, which is why I changed it from pursuit to prioritization. Because when you're pursuing something, it's with the thing that if I do this, I'm going to be happy a year later. But when you're prioritizing it, you're sort of prioritizing short-term happiness, but with a long-term gain in mind. And again, if you sort of, like that little graph that I showed, you also have to think about how long your happiness lasts when you do something. So while eating 5 pieces of chocolate may be amazing, but if it only makes you feel happy for a short time, maybe it's not worth spending that much effort on. Maybe you should prioritize something else where your happiness lasts a little longer. Yahoo. Awesome. Thank you.